Hello, college sports fans. This is the College Sports Superfan. Unfortunately, my laptop is still in the shop, so I got to do this on the iPhone instead. But it's Friday, November 15th, and there's a lot of great college basketball matchups and college football games tonight, as well as coming up tomorrow. So I just couldn't go another week without making any more videos. I had that itch, had to get it done here. So even though it's on an iPhone, I'm just going to get into it. Now tonight, there's 6 major college basketball matchups, 1 women's matchup, and 5 men's matchups. So I'm going to get into those, and I'm going to start with the women's matchup. Okay, let's start with number 14, North Carolina versus number 2, UConn, on the road against the UConn Huskies. And UConn has been better than North Carolina in just about every single metric besides rebounding. This UConn Huskies defense is also elite to start the season. Through the first 2 games, they're only allowing on average 40.5 points per game. That is insane defense. And superstar Paige Beckers is coming off of a game where she scored over 20 points. So she seems to be in the swing of things now. North Carolina is a very good team, but UConn is just way too elite. They've still got Gino as head coach, and they're going to be one of the top contenders this year. I say at home, UConn's going to win this game by 10. And they've got a very difficult schedule coming up the rest of the way, as they're going to play number 6 Notre Dame later on, number 3 USC later on, and number 8 Iowa State. So UConn, still 3 top 10 teams on the horizon. They're not going to drop this game to North Carolina. Okay, now for the men's games. This is the first of 5 games. We're going to start with a great rivalry game, number 20 Florida on the road against Florida State. Both of these teams are off to a 3-0 start despite the Todd Golden scandal going on at Florida. Todd Golden being the head coach, and he's been suspended for some misconduct that I'm not going to get into here. This is a family-friendly channel, so I'm not going to get into the misconduct here, but both teams are off to a 3-0 start. Florida State guard Jameer Watkins is FSU's only double-digit scorer. He's got 18 points per game, but he's coming off a game where he only scored 8 points and had 4 turnovers against Tarleton State. Not very good. The next top scorer for Florida State, and also their top rebounder, is Taylor Bull Bowen, who's averaging 9 points per game and 6 rebounds per game. The Florida Gators, on the other hand, have 4 different players that are double-digit scorers, including Will Richard, Elijah Martin, Alex Condon, and also Walter Clayton. Despite the controversy going on with the Florida Gators men's basketball program, they are still favored by 5 points on the road against FSU. And to be honest, Florida State these last few years has just not been the same team, and they don't have the same depth that Florida has. And with Jameer Watkins struggling in his most recent game, I truly believe that Florida is going to go on the road and beat Florida State by 6 points, despite the distractions that they're dealing with. Okay, now this is a big one right here. Number 2 Alabama at number 13 Purdue. This should be a really good game. Mark Sears is back for the Crimson Tide, and he's averaging 18 points per game. And Cliff Amori is in for Alabama. He used to play for Rutgers, very versatile center. He's got 8 rebounds per game, which is the leading rebounder, and also 10.7 points per game. Grant Nelson is also back for the Tide, and he's averaging 12 points per game and 5.7 rebounds per game, so he's off to a pretty good start himself. Alabama is the first in a really tough non-conference slate for the Purdue Boilermakers, as next they will go on the road to play number 15 Marquette, and they'll return home to play number 23 Texas A&M, and then they also have to face off against number 5 Auburn. The Boilermakers have 3 top-tier scorers on their team. Fletcher Lawyer leads the way with 17 points per game. Trey Kaufman-Wren has 15.3 points per game. And Braden Smith has 15 points per game. Braden Smith is also averaging 9.3 assists per game and 6.3 rebounds per game. Although all of those rebounds are defensive rebounds, this is still a very hot start for Braden Smith. Bama is favored by just 1 point on the road, and I really badly wanted to pick Purdue to win this game. However, I just think Alabama is a deeper team. They play better defense as well at this point, so I really think Alabama is going to come on the road and win by just 3 points, but this certainly will be a thriller tonight. All right, guys, I've just got 3 more games to go. But first, if you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. Also share it to other people who you think will like this content. And again, I'll have a much better and more normal setup once I get my laptop working again. Okay, now for number 15, Marquette at Maryland. And Maryland is a little bit of a sleeper in the Big Ten this year. The Terps have a talented freshman center in Derek Queen, who has 13.7 points per game and 7.7 rebounds per game. Also in the front court is leader Julian Reese, who's got 13 points per game and 8 rebounds per game, which leads the team. For the guards, Rodney Rice leads the team in scoring with 16.7 points per game. And then Jacoby Gillespie also has been a great guard with 13.7 points per game and 1.3 steals per game. The interesting thing about Maryland here is that they do not have a whole lot of assists, but they also don't have a whole lot of turnovers, which leads me to believe they're playing a lot of one-on-one basketball right now. Very, very interesting. The guys going down, going one-on-one, not passing it a whole lot. But again, it hasn't led to a whole lot of turnovers either, which is going to be key against this Marquette defense. Number 15, Marquette so far has had an elite offense and an elite defense. There are 4 players on this Golden Eagles team who are averaging over 2 steals per game. Chase Ross is averaging 3.3 steals per game. Mitchell is averaging 2.7 steals per game. And then Cam Jones and David Joplin are both averaging 2.3 steals per game. Cam Jones also has 22.7 points per game and 6.3 assists per game. So once again, this superstar guard off to a really hot start to begin the year. David Joplin has 15.3 points per game and 6.7 rebounds per game. And Chase Ross, who I mentioned earlier, who has over 3 steals per game, also has 15.3 points per game and 6.3 rebounds per game. Overall, Maryland is favored by just 1.5 points at home, which is interesting considering that Marquette is the ranked team. I think it's because of how efficient Maryland has been on offense. This one right here was absolutely the toughest game to pick. I went back and forth with this one over and over again, but ultimately I'm going to say Maryland does not turn the ball over and they win this game by 3 points at home. Okay, now for the other big ranked matchup tonight. Number 21, Ohio State at number 23, Texas A&M. Ohio State is the only team here out of all these teams that's actually played a decently tough team. They played Texas in Las Vegas and beat the Longhorns 80-72, hence why Ohio State is now in the top 25. Meanwhile, Texas A&M, they started the year number 13, but lost a shocker, an absolute stunner on the road against Central Florida, which, by the way, the Knights are still 3-0 at this point. And Texas A&M lost that game 64-61. However, they've now played back-to-back chump teams from the state of Texas to bounce back and gain their confidence back for this huge game against the Buckeyes. Bruce Thornton was the top player for Ohio State in that win over Texas. And as of right now, he's got 16 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, and 4 assists per game. Micah Parrish has 10.5 points per game and 5.5 rebounds per game for Ohio State, and John Mobley has 15 points per game. Meanwhile, for the Aggies, guard Zarich Phelps, I'm hoping I'm saying his name correctly, he's been a surprise player with 17 points per game and 3 steals per game. Both of those categories lead the team. Veteran leader Wade Taylor has 12.7 points per game and 5.3 assists per game. Henry Coleman has also been fantastic with 11 points per game and 7 rebounds per game. But here's an interesting key stat line for Henry Coleman: 5.3 offensive rebounds per game. So he's done a great job at getting extra possessions for this Texas A&M offense. Texas A&M is favored by 4 points. And you know what? I like them to win this game because they're at home. They need a big win. They're more talented than Ohio State, and they're a better coach than Ohio State. I'm going to say Texas A&M wins this game by 6. Finally, we have number 9 Arizona at Wisconsin. The Badgers also undefeated to start the year, and they're another sleeper team in the Big Ten. And this is a major trap game for the top 10 Wildcats because next Friday night, they'll be hosting Duke, who of course is currently ranked number 6, but they just lost that thriller to Kentucky and Atlanta, Georgia. So they're going to drop. That might still be a top 10 matchup, but again, that's all a maybe. But still, going to be a big game regardless, and Arizona cannot overlook Wisconsin looking ahead to their big game at home next Friday. The veteran Caleb Love is back once again, and he leads Arizona in scoring with just 13.5 points per game. So they're really spreading the ball around to all their players to begin this season. Tobe Awaka, who I remember seeing play at Tennessee, I always thought he had tons and tons of potential. Well, he's averaging a double-double to start this season, 11 points per game and 12 rebounds per game, plus a steal and a block per game to start off. So he's off to an insane start to this season. Guards KJ Lewis and Jaden Bradley are both averaging 11 points per game to start the season. Bradley is also averaging 2.5 steals per game, and Lewis is averaging 1.5 steals per game and 1.5 blocks per game. As for the Badgers, John Tonye, hopefully I'm saying that right, leads the team in scoring as he's come out of nowhere with 17.7 points per game and also has 5.3 assists per game. Max Klesmit is back again, and he has 16 points per game and 3 steals per game, which leads the team. And finally, the last part of the big three, Nolan Winter has 10.3 points per game and 6.7 rebounds per game, which leads the team. As of right now, Arizona is favored by 5.5 on the road, and I really wanted to pick Wisconsin to get this upset, but at the end of the day, the Wildcats are so deep. They're playing so well offensively and defensively, and it really feels like they're playing like a team, and Tommy Lloyd is a really great head coach. This is going to be a tough one to win at night on the road in Madison, but I do believe Arizona has too much talent, and they're going to win this game by 5. Thank you all so much for watching. I know this isn't the most ideal setup, but I'll get my laptop back. I'll get my whole setup back. Things are going to be much better next week, so stay tuned for those. And also stay tuned for my other video coming out later today, which is going to be a big one, talking about the college football games tonight and tomorrow. Thank you all so much. Please like and subscribe.